The phone was already screaming when I stepped into the ballroom. 71 missed calls stacked like a crime scene. The screen glowed against my palm, hot and accusing. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I knew who it was and why now, because the photos had gone out an hour earlier. The villa in Switzerland. The lake like a blade of glass. The terrace where silence costs more than noise. I slipped the phone into my pocket and lifted my eyes. The engagement banner hung crooked, as if it already knew it wouldn't survive the night. My wife's brother stood beneath it, smiling too hard, his jaw clenched with borrowed confidence. His bride-to-be hovered at his side, perfume sharp, laugh sharper, collecting glances like trophies. That's when she leaned into her circle. I heard it. I always hear it. The stinky country guy is here. The words didn't land like an insult. They landed like confirmation. Somewhere behind me, a waiter dropped a tray. Glass shattered. Everyone flinched. I didn't. I watched her face in the reflection of a polished pillar as she smiled thin, pleased with herself. She didn't know the ground she stood on was mine. She didn't know the doors were already closing. My phone buzzed again. This time, a voicemail forced through. "If you want to join Thanksgiving," my daughter-in-law shouted, voice bright with contempt, "come wash the dishes." I smiled. Soft, private. "Enjoy," I whispered to no one. Betrayal doesn't begin with knives. It begins with assumptions. They assumed I was dull, that I came from soil and sweat, and therefore didn't understand glass towers and paper trails. They assumed I was grateful to be tolerated. They assumed my silence was ignorance. My wife avoided my eyes all evening. That was new. She used to find them instinctively in a room, like a compass needle finding north. Now her gaze slid past me, as if I were a stranger who had overstayed his welcome. The bride's family treated me like an inconvenience. Seats shifted away. Conversation stopped when I approached, then resumed with careful smiles. I felt the shape of something missing: respect, perhaps. Or fear. Months ago, small things had begun to disappear. Not objects. Authority. Signatures I didn't remember giving. Meetings scheduled without me. Decisions made for my own good. I told myself it was age. Fatigue. I told myself I was imagining the chill. But imagination doesn't reroute bank notifications. It doesn't duplicate keys. It doesn't teach people to speak over you with practiced ease. I watched my wife laugh at a joke whispered by the shrew. Watched the way she leaned in. Conspiratorial. Intimate. A private language I was no longer fluent in. There it was, the betrayal not of flesh, but of alignment. They had chosen a side, and it wasn't mine. I did nothing. That's what frightened them later, I think. The absence of reaction. Rage is expected. Tears are manageable. Silence forces imagination to work overtime. I began with patterns. Phone records first: who calls when they think no one is watching. Then emails, archived and mislabeled, hiding in folders meant to be forgotten. I hired a forensic accountant through a shell company I'd built a decade ago for reasons exactly like this. Trust is expensive. Preparation is priceless. I smiled at dinners, nodded at suggestions, signed what was put in front of me after I photographed it. At night, I lay awake and felt the storm pace inside my chest. It wanted release. I denied it. Storms are useful when contained. The shrew started wearing confidence like a second skin. She spoke of managing assets, of modernizing portfolios. She touched my wife's arm when she spoke, as if to anchor her. I watched. I learned. The truth came together not as a single revelation, but as a mosaic. Embezzlement disguised as restructuring. A quiet plan to declare me unfit, mentally declining, financially reckless. My wife's brother positioned as savior. His wife as strategist. And my wife had signed the first paper. Not coerced. Not confused. Convinced. I booked a flight to Zurich and told no one. Sent one photograph from the villa when I arrived. No caption. No explanation. Just marble, water, sky. The phone began to scream. I let it. The report arrived on thick paper, the kind that resists tearing. It detailed everything they thought invisible. Dates. Amounts. Intent. It named names with the indifference of law. I placed it on the kitchen table between the coffee and the sugar bowl. My wife saw it and went very still. You went behind my back, she said, not as an accusation, an observation. So did you, I replied. She opened the report. Her breath caught halfway through page 3. By page 7, her hands were shaking. She tried to speak. Failed. Tried again. We were protecting you, she said. You don't understand how things work anymore. I nodded. Slowly. That night, at the engagement party's final toast, I asked the manager for the microphone. My name opened doors even when my face didn't. I want to thank everyone for coming, I said, voice steady. And for trusting this venue with such an important moment. A pause. I own it, I added. The silence was exquisite. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I projected the documents behind me. Clean. Legible. Inescapable. The room leaned forward as one organism, hungry for spectacle. I gave them facts instead. The bride's smile collapsed first. Her knees followed. Mascara traced the path of gravity down her cheeks. My wife's brother opened his mouth and closed it again, like a man discovering the concept of drowning. I turned to my wife last. You thought I was slow, I said quietly. But I was only patient. Security arrived not for me. The manager knew who signed his paychecks. Outside, the night felt lighter, as if something heavy had finally been set down. My phone buzzed again. And again. 71 times by morning. I never answered. Switzerland doesn't ask questions. It reflects. I stood on the terrace and watched the lake hold the mountains without effort. Power doesn't roar. It rests. They lost everything they tried to take. Reputation. Access. Each other. My wife moved out quietly. Papers followed. Signatures this time were unmistakably mine. I felt no joy. No grief. Only accuracy. Some people mistake kindness for blindness. They confuse silence with surrender. They forget that the ground remembers who owns it. I turned my phone off and walked away without looking back.